21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Companies, as they grow and scale, I mean, you hear this all the time. So it starts off, there's just 5 of us and it was so easy. We were all around a table, and then there was 10 of us and it got a little more. Well, now there's 50 of us, and it's just we've lost that feeling because as the company grows and you get more of everything, customers, it unavoidably gets more complex. And that's where people get bollocksed up, is in the complexity of things. And they keep wanting to try and either simplify it, or let's just see if we can't keep that startup, feeling. It's like, no, you're not a startup anymore. You got to go to the next level. And that's learning a whole new set of practices for coordination, because that's what stops everything, is our incapacity to effectively coordinate. One of the things that I find is universally, it's not always appreciated, but needed, is a little grounding for people on how you actually learn. Because we live in a fantasy, and many people are very frustrated. They spend all this money on programs and books and stuff, and nothing seems to get much better because they don't understand that that's just kind of the first phase of learning, is gathering information. That doesn't enable you anything. I'm sure you probably read my backgrounds in working with athletes and soldiers, right? People who are under constant pressure to perform. And in that world, we very quickly were clear that understanding's the booby prize. It doesn't matter what you understand. What matters is what can you do. And people can see this easily in sports. Like if you watch athletes or anybody who is really at the top of their game in any profession, from music to dance to any athletics, the military, what do they spend most of their time doing? Practicing, right? And what do we do in business? None. We live in this story that, oh, I got out of school, so I'm good for the rest of my life. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. So I go in when I'm working with groups, I'll ask you, how many of you think you know everything you need to know to be successful for the next 10 years? It's been a long time since anybody raised their hand. And the last time somebody did, it was because they were going to retire in 2 years. So, okay, how about the next 5 years? You still don't get any hands. And I say, okay, well, good. So nobody here is living in delusion. So what are you going to do? All right, if you don't know everything, what are you going to do? And they don't have a good answer. Well, are you going to go back to school? Oh, no, I don't have time for that. So you go through the routine and go, well, here's the deal. The elite organizations on the planet spend anywhere from 2 to 4% of net revenue on learning and development. And anywhere from 3 to 10% of their time is dedicated to learning. So just gauge, how are you stacking up against that? And everybody goes, their mouths hang open. Say, yeah, because this is what I tell people, this, as I say, it scrambles their eggs, is while your mind understands, and understanding can, in fact, occur in an instant, in the end, it's your body that learns. And your body only learns one way, and that's through practice. No amount of understanding ever produced competence in anything. Only practice does. And as I said, they can see that. Everybody gets that with any sporting activity, but it isn't any different if you're wanting to learn some new management or leadership practice. You can't just read about it. That doesn't do you any good. That's providing awareness. Oh, I see there's something here I didn't see before. So anyway, you got the tone of that little rant. And then we look, okay, well, so now what is it you need to learn? Well, I think everybody can see, well, I could certainly use some more effective leadership practices. And, you can cascade down. Distinct from leadership is management. And there, the background is equally kind of, I don't know, disturbing is the right word, but most of what we think of as modern management practices were invented by guys who were born in the 1800s. They were designed to be effective for Henry Ford and his peers. And, we've had a lot of technological advancement over the years, but the basic theories of management haven't progressed. And they were designed for a workforce that is long gone. You know, we've entered a new historical era, and in my opinion, most everybody's missed it. We went from the industrial era. Everybody thought, oh, now it's knowledge. I said, no, there's not knowledge workers. Knowledge without action is useless. All right. So what I dubbed it the coordination era. And in the coordination era, you have the population are coordination workers. And coordination workers are very different than industrial era workers, right? They don't make things, but they generate value out of their effective coordination with each other to produce customer satisfaction, whether that's an internal or external customer. And that's a whole different game. In the industrial era, management meant supervision, right? Because we needed to have order, control, and we're doing the same thing over and over and over. So we needed precision. We didn't want any disruptions. We don't like surprises. All we paid attention to was input, output, throughput. Well, that doesn't work. Coordination. They don't like it because unlike industrial workers who were largely unsophisticated, uneducated, and unskilled, these are sophisticated, educated, not to mention mobile, and they don't like some nitnoise standing over their shoulder telling them what to do, all the time. And so you see, if you go to big organizations, and we still do all the surveys, engagement numbers are still kind of pathetic. You've got anywhere from 30 to 50% of your workforce is engaged in what they do. So on what sports team would it be okay to have, only 50% of the team engaged in what they're doing? None, zero, right? But we're somehow not okay, but we don't know what to, in general, business leaders don't know what to do about it. So, we try the happy clappy and we dabble here and there, and we don't really dive into how do we really overhaul our fundamental, both philosophy and practice of management. Well, mine's a pretty, what's the right word here? Non-traditional story, okay? So, like most everybody, I went to college, did a master's degree, and the subplot to that was I was captain of the rugby team at the University of Washington. And I played first division for another 8 or 9 years after that. So in my 20s, I spent time working in government, which I did just long enough to understand, nope, that wasn't for me. And I had occasion, I went to Alaska um, and helped implement the Native Claims Settlement Act back in the 70s, flying around in a bush plane to little villages and watching all the stuff I'd learned in graduate school just go out the window. And about the time, while all this is going on, every year there was a invitational only from best teams from around the world to this tournament in Monterey, California. And my team consistently got invited. So I'd get to the airport to fly. And the book that I was reading, I'd left at the bedside table. So I went, oh crap, I don't have anything to do on the plane. I'm not the kind of guy who can stare out the window for 4 hours or read the in-flight magazine 10 times. So I'm a bright guy, and let's go to the bookstore and get another book. How hard is this to figure out? You know the scene. You've been to the airport bookstore. There's the whole wall of books. There's the thrillers and histories and mysteries and bodice rippers. And this is going to sound strange, but all of a sudden, this book in the very far upper corner starts talking to me. And I don't mean an audiobook. It's talking to me in my head. I'm going, okay, this is different. New experience here. So not surprisingly, I went and got the book. It was called The Ultimate Athlete by a guy named George Leonard. And I thought, oh, perfect. I'll read this on the plane. I'll pick up some pointers that I can use over the weekend in the tournament. And no, that was not it. So I get on the plane, I start reading this book, and I go, oh my gosh, He's talking about stuff I don't know what this, synchronicity, intentionality, this Japanese energy called ki, and some martial art that I'd never heard of called Aikido, and these various characters and stuff. And I was left thinking, wow, I I don't know that I understand all this, but I like it. It somewhat resonated with me, right? That shifted my life. That experience set me on a completely different course. About 6 or 7 months later, I said to myself, okay, it might be time to grow up. Oh no. And, get serious about this. All through my 20s, I was, bouncing around and not really sure what I wanted to do. I had some sense that I was supposed to be up to something, but didn't know what it was. And, I'm watching my friends build their families and careers, and I'm, just kind of goofing around. And all of a sudden now I started down this path. I quit playing rugby, took up the study of Aikido. One of my fellow students was a sports psychologist. Now in time, it's the early 80s. This was when sports psychology was seen as something akin to voodoo or black magic, right? And I liked this guy because he had sciencey sounding explanations for experiences that I had had and kind of written off as too many bangs on the head or flashbacks to the 60s, right? And we were just young and kind of naive enough to not know it was probably not a good idea, but we started our own business. Hey, startup boys. And our original mission was real simple. We were going to work exclusively with athletes. I'd been a rugby player. He was a world-class skier, been on the K2 demonstration team. And we wanted to isolate and reproduce in others the elements that led to consistent winning performance. And what we did, in our own view, was modernize the old Greek model, mind, body, spirit. So we brought contemporary methodology and technology to that model, and we did some tremendous work with our initial clients. All of whom were individual performers. We enhanced their on-field performance with off-field work, and actually kind of surprised ourselves in some cases about the difference that it made. Now, we had a little problem, which is that this was in the early 80s, before Nike and Adidas and everybody exists the way they do today. All of our clients were amateurs, which meant they were broke. Doing good work, not getting paid. Flaw in the business plan. So we turned our attention to teams. We saw the same thing you've seen, everybody's seen. We could take a group of individuals. Those individuals were terrific, put them together on a team, and that team would stink. We go, no, that makes no sense. So we developed a body of work that we call team cohesion. We coined that phrase in 1980, I don't know, 3 or 4 or so, and went to work. We got national teams, Olympic teams, professional teams, and out of the blue, it's a long and much more intricate and entertaining story than we have time for right now. We found ourselves working with the Army, which was never part of my plan. Right? We caught their attention with the work that we did, and we set some records with the Army. We did a year-long classified project with the Special Forces where we had a blank check to push the boundaries of human performance. And at the end of that, I said to my guys, okay, we've had the opportunity to develop and deploy a body of work that's proven effective in 2 big arenas where performance matters and where you can measure it. First with athletes, then with soldiers. I don't really want to spend my whole career training soldiers. Now, don't get me wrong, that was the best stuff we ever did. But the process of getting to do it, the Army's contracting process, was sufficiently odious that, I was kind of young in my 30s, and I thought, oh, I don't really want to hire 4 or 5 guys to do contract compliance. So yeah, let's not do that. So we're going to go, and you'll love this. It's the entrepreneurial story. So I want to get into the corporate world. I want to build it as a business, not as a personality thing. So I don't want my name on it. I don't want to be, like in those days, Est and all these other programs were around. And there's this young kid kind of coming up named Tony Robbins. And I think I don't want to be like that, because then you just got a mom and pop business, right? If Tony gets run over by a bus, That's it. So ours is going to be the strength of the content, not personalities. So I put together a business plan, and all my guys said, "You're crazy. What do you know about this?" Blah, 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 blah. I said, "Thanks for the support." And I talked to a couple guys in the business community that I knew, and they said, "Well, this is going to be tough because it's a service business. All of your product goes home every night at 5 o'clock. It's also kind of a out there, right? People won't quite understand. So it's a woo-woo business." So I said, "Yeah, well, okay." The very first guy I talked to thought this was the coolest thing ever, wrote me a check for $450,000 in 1983 or four, whatever it was. I was left with, what's so hard about this? What's the big deal about raising money? First guy I talked to said, yeah. So big deal. Not the lesson I probably needed at the time. So we built out a corporate program. We tested it on a subcontractor of Boeing's, little tiny company nobody'd ever heard of, and that was fine with me because I'm thinking, if it works here, great. If it doesn't work here, no one will ever know. So it worked better than I imagined. And my second client was AT&T. Yeah, I went from, obscuria to center ring in the circus, right? We went from 5 guys to 85 guys in 6 months. And as I tell everybody, the business succeeded, oftentimes despite my best efforts. But clearly, Providence was smiling on us in those days. So we did some extraordinary work at AT&T. We took a division that was basically not making any money. And over the course of 48 months, they generated $3 billion in profit for AT&T. As you could imagine, that got some attention around the place, and we ended up working almost exclusively with AT&T for 3.5 years, putting people through these programs. And that kind of launched us. I was on the Today Show and McNeil Lair, and we did AT&T and Capital One and Cargill, and we had a host of blue chip clients. Uh, and everything was, it was happy, happy day, until the economy, global economy collapsed in 2007 and 8. When I explain to people how and why it works, I usually have a graphic that I can display, which we don't have here. So you'll just have to imagine a, 3-axis chart, right? So as I tell people, it took me 5 or 6 years to figure this out, clearly. And thankfully, it only takes about that many minutes to explain it now. So what we came to understand was that there's three important variables you have to pay attention to if you want to transform an organization or an individual for that matter. But we're talking about an organization now. And the first, most important, and the one that everybody misses is what we call the mood in the organization. And the easiest way to think about it is a mood is a predisposition for action. Okay, and they're not the same thing as emotions. They're loosely related cousins, but they're not the same thing at all. And the axiom that we use with everyone is mood is everything. It's not the only thing, but it's everything, because if you don't get this right, nothing else you do is going to matter. Now, moods come in two flavors. Technically, we call them generative and degenerative. And what they generate or not is the space of possibilities that your future lives in. Common language, you can, okay, positive, negative, fine. Positive moods are things like ambition, confidence, trust, esprit, resolve, those sorts of things. Negative moods are things like distrust, resignation, resentment, complacency, arrogance, entitlement, things of that sort. Okay. Now, the thing about moods is they don't live in your head like ideas. They live in your body, right? And you can see them in the way people move and carry themselves. The poster boy for resignation is a cartoon character named Eeyore. Right? What is he? He's all gray. There's not a right angle on him. He's just, oh, yeah, the sun's out today, but it'll probably rain tomorrow. Always looking at, the negative stuff. Now, as I explained to people, part of the magic to our program is that we know that moods live in your body, so you have to get them out of the body. You do that by talking. And that's the part that, seems to befuddle, the HR department and all the academics, is because they're used to just talking. So what we would do is lots of activities, and we did a very specific type of ropes course, right? So you get people up in the air doing things that they think is impossible. And that's the whole point, is we want them to have the experience of doing something that they thought was, if not impossible, profoundly difficult, right? Because they live in their heads like, I can't, and they make up all these stories. And then we coach them and get them through doing one of these things. And then got them on the ground, and the look on their face, you've got about 10 seconds to make a difference right there while they're still in this explored state. I said, okay, look, 2 minutes ago, you were convinced that this was impossible. We now have irrefutable evidence, because you just did it, that impossible was just a story you made up. And I want you to look at every other aspect of your life right now, real quickly. Where else are you living in a story that it's impossible, it's difficult, it can't be done? And understand that every one of those things are just things you've made up in your head. And their mind goes off. Boom. You do that enough. I mean, it was an immersive experience. Our initial work with people was 4.5 days on site. They went from 7 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night every day. And at the end of that, they were literally in a whole different mood. Now, in and of itself, that's the first step you've got to take. You got to blow up the mood, get them out of resignation, because that's the result of 10, 15 years of corporate life. People are in various, what we call tranquilized resentment or resignation as a result of outdated management practices, right? And it's true across every organization we've ever come across, because we're still using those same old practices. So you shift the mood. Then the other axes are leadership and management practices. On the scale, you've got those leaders who really know how to constitute, lead, and manage teams. They know how to work and play with the moods. They know how to design our version of workflows. And on the bottom end of that scale, you've got the old management equals supervision, hierarchical command and control characters, okay? The bottom scale are the systems and processes. And this is where it's a scale of coherence. So what we say is your systems and processes need to be coherent with the declared mood and practices that you want. So the example is real simple. People come to us all the time. You're supposedly the best there is at producing teams, high-performing teams. What can you do with my division department, whatever it is? And I'll say, well, I can promise you the short-term effect, but tell me about your compensation system. Oh, it only rewards individual effort. Well, then you can forget about having a team in the long run, right? Because your system is incoherent with the declared moods of trust and confidence and the practices of teamwork. It's not going to, work. And so what made our program so effectively is we're not in the systems business. We'll make recommendations. We do the other two things, the mood, leadership, and management practices. And what causes literally every program failure there ever was is, one, they have an inappropriate understanding about learning. They think it's about dispensing information. Two, they're blind to the phenomenon of mood. See, the analogy I use is simple. Have you ever painted a house, the outside of a house before? Well, what's the first thing you have to do? You got to scrape off the old paint. Now, if you don't know that, or you don't think that's a big deal, and you just put new paint on the old paint, what happens? It comes off, it peels off quickly. It's the same thing here. You can have a really great new systems and process. You can have some really cool new leadership practice, but if you try and put that on top of resentment and resignation and distrust, it's not going anywhere. So that's why I say you got to change the mood first. Then you put in the new systems, processes, and practices. And if you don't do that, nothing's going to last. Learned this the hard way, right? Because our initial program was just the 4.5 days. And we would blow the mood out and it'd stay out there for 18, 24 months. We tracked this with AT&T. But then it'd start going negative, and we thought, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? Till we realized, oh, you showed us that something really cool is possible, but then you didn't follow it up with making it sustainable. Oh, you think we were in a bad mood before. Ha ha, watch this. So what we did then was follow-up work, ongoing. So the program evolved from taking 5.5 days to taking 9 months, because we do these little, additional conferences, lay down new practices, help them map out new systems and processes, rewards, recognition, compensation, promotion, all have to get changed to work with the new practices and mood. And people go like, oh man, that's a lot of work. Yeah, we didn't say it was going to be, easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. Those are two different things, right? And that's how you generate 3 billion in profit in that short amount of time. So what's happened for us, since 2007, 2008, it's been almost, 20 years. The business collapsed then because everything stopped. We had to rebuild it, got it back going again, and then COVID hit, really killed it because everything we did was delivered live. Right? So we're not doing anything, we're not getting people back together. And the historical business, for the most part, I've had to come to terms with. I don't think it's coming back. Only now are people starting to get groups back together. And to be blunt about it, we don't have that kind of a sales mechanism anymore. So what we've done is taken kind of, if you will, our greatest hits and put them into a couple of video programs. And it took a while to really figure out how do we do this best, but we just followed the same model. So the video program works like this. You've got X number of modules, depending on which program you're doing, and then you get a rather robust workbook. The real work comes in you doing the work in the workbook. You listen to me talk for a while on the video, but the real work is you get in there, do the work. Takes time because the assignments unfold over a couple weeks, not 20 minutes. Go do this every day for 5 days or 10 days or whatever it is. And that's how you build that, what we call embodied competence. So there's the key. Our product is what we call embodied competence. Embodied means you can take the new action without having to stop, think about it, look it up in some book. And competence is simply the capacity to produce the desired result. So embodied competence is there's only one way to get it. That's practice. As I said earlier, no amount of understanding ever produced competence. So these video programs are designed to do that, produce embodied competence. So they take, a couple months, 3 months to complete, because that's how long it's going to take you to get these new practices embodied. So we've got two programs. One's on leadership. We call it the Elite Leadership Program, because it's the practices that we've taught to, I don't mean elitist, but the top tier of leaders in any number of sectors. And the other's called Into Action. And it's really all about how do you effectively coordinate across organizations, across cultures, across across any parts of the business so that you can effectively scale and manage your company. If you go on our website, humanpotentialproject.com, you'll see the information about these two new programs. And for since they're just new, we're giving away the first module for free. For a little while. We're not going to do that forever, but for right now, till we get some traction on these things, we're giving away the first module for free. And the first module for both programs is about learning. It's a deeper version of the conversation we just had. So if you don't get what it really is going to take to learn, there's no point doing the rest of the program because it won't stick. And then as I tell people, if you do the practices, you will learn, regardless of your mind's opinion about it. And that's the thing people don't understand. In your head, if you're going, oh, I hate this and I don't like it, and it's like, that's fine. Just keep doing it. Just keep doing it, and your body will learn. You don't have to like it. You don't have to agree with it. Just do it. And voila, you'll come out the other end. I don't want people to hate it, but they've got to understand that what we're up to here is shifting your fundamental way of operating in the world. You've become the you that you are over whatever, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. You should be insulted if somebody tells you, oh, come and sit here for a weekend and we'll change everything. It's like, that's complete bullshit. Get in, do the work, and you will be totally amazed at what comes out the other side. We've got stuff that most people have never seen before, because we're the only place you can get much of it. And here it is now. Instead of having, to get together 100 people and pay $500,000 to get me to come and work with you for 9 months, you can take the leadership vein, you can take the into action, either one, and get some of those same basic kind of results.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.